Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach, and today we have with us Bob Dubois, who is a professional network marketer who's made millions of dollars in the industry. Welcome to the program, Bob.
Hello, Mike. How are you today?
Hey, doing really good. And you know, when I hear that someone has made millions of dollars in the industry, that tells me that you are not a newbie. You are a seasoned vet. So tell me a little bit about your background in the network marketing industry and what makes you a professional in the industry as far as time and experience.
All right. Well, Mike, actually been in the industry now of network marketing for 14 years. Absolutely the last thing I thought I'd ever be doing to build wealth for my family, but I saw a need and a want, and probably one of my biggest and most concerning things was, did I have the time to do this? I had three sons that were growing up, that were starting in their teens, and they were in sports. My wife's always been a stay-at-home mom. I just simply didn't know if I had the time. But you know what? I've learned a lot of stuff in the industry. I've always been a guy that, I'm going to venture out and see what I can do. Instead of wishing I and woulda, couldas, and shouldas, I wanted to see what the possibilities were. So I've learned about time in this industry.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up because I think that you think about some of these resources that we all have, like, well, that person was just born with, fill in the blank. Well, we all were born with 24 hours in a day. And nobody gets more than that. But because you can do some things to maximize time, and because you can then have the end result of, like you said, building wealth for your family, let's talk about how some of the ways you've discovered to maximize your time, because I think you made a really strong point there. You were human. You had a family and kids and sports, and you own some businesses. And it's like, when's the perfect time to start a side hustle in network marketing? Oh, yeah, never. Well, no, that's not the case. The case is the perfect time is now, but then you have to do some really specific things to make sure you carve out specific amounts of time. So speak a little bit about that, or how people can maximize their time.
Well, for me, Mike, here's what I learned is, at first I needed to decide if what I was doing in my life really was enough money to provide for me and my loved ones for the future. Okay. I wanted to see if, the money I was bringing in, and I was making a six-figure income because I was a multiple business owner, was that going to take us to where we wanted to be in the future? And when I looked at it and decided that it wasn't, I needed to do more or something, or somehow produce more money. The one factor was I had the lack of time, and but I knew, I learned in the past that if you want something, you need to create it. So, all the time I run into people in this industry, they might join into the industry, like into my business, or I've showed them the details of this, and it always there's times, it's not always, but there's times it comes up, I don't have the time, or, call me and I'll join after my kids' soccer practice, or, they're done with sports, or when the kids are back in school, or, I'm going through this in my business, or, my job is hectic. But those, to me, those are all excuses. And I'm not judging people, but for me, those were the reasons that I did this, because I was tired of not being able to see my sons in playing their sporting events because I was so busy working in my businesses that I owned, and I wanted to be part of that. I wanted, and I was watching my parents struggle because in retirement, I wanted to not be that way. I needed a way to create money. I needed to do it now. So I've always been taught to do the important things in life first, and then work from there. I've learned that time opens up also. It'll open up for the important things if you'll put those important things in, and if you'll, categorize them, in your own mind that they're very important. I learned to do so I when I became a member in this company and in network marketing, I learned, and a guy came up with a phrase once that he told me. He said, this business is built now and next to now. And I thought, well, what's that mean? It's now. You've got to decide to do it now. Because if you'll do this now, and if you'll think about the future, the end results, what are you wanting to get after? It's just like going on vacation. People want to go on vacation. Well, doesn't it always seem like the day or two before vacation, you always get things done really fast? You get a lot of things accomplished, right?
I couldn't agree more with that vacation, because you're compressing time, because you've got this really crystal clear goal that I'm leaving town and I've got to get things done, and there's a deadline.
Right. And so I made a decision that I had to crunch time, because the future, time doesn't stop for us. It doesn't go on hold if our kids are in sports or anything. It just keeps going on, the younger I was, I knew it was time to go hit this thing and produce results, because I wanted my future to be different. And giving it and here's one of the most important things: giving it and finding the time was extremely important for me, because my family and my loved ones were worth it. And I believe that everybody wants to be a very good provider for their family and their loved ones, but they just cannot figure out that time issue. But we all have the same amount of time. It's just how we use it. And that's when, I was taught that I needed to prioritize it. And that's when I learned that I needed to give some things up in order to open my time.
That's a really good point. In fact, you mentioned vacations. And as you were mentioning that, it made me think of something. There's an island that almost everybody we know vacations at. Do you know what island that is?
No.
Someday I'll. Oh, someday I'll do that. Right, you know what I'm saying? And I've been comical, but it really is a mindset that people take, and it's like, oh, someday I'll do that. Yeah, that's important. Someday I'll do that. Well, when? And you hear some people, and I hear it so many times, and I'll bet you do as well. And anyone listening to this, I'll bet you can find a time when you're like, oh, I'm just so busy, I can't do one extra thing. But if you were to rewind that day and write down every single moment that you spent what you did, you probably watched some TV, you probably did some things where you could have carved out easily 1 to 1.5 hours. No matter what. I teach marketing classes for 4 different universities online, and so many times I'll have a student that goes, oh, I need an extension because I whatever, and the thought crosses my mind, you know what? This was a 400-word paper that you had all week to write. Big deal. It would take you literally 30 minutes. I'll bet you went to a movie. I'll bet, and you can never say that. But what I want to speak to you about is that concept of someday people see enough to say to you, to your face or on the phone, yeah, I want to do that. Someday I want to do that. How do you get someone to kind of wake up to the reality that someday is today?
That's a great question. Well, Mike, one of the things I do is I try to get their why. What do they want out of life? What do they want out of life? But here's a kicker on that, because there's a second part. I've always been taught in the industry, and find out what people want more of and what they want less of, and then you focus on what they want more of. And when you go through that list with that and you find out what they really want, if they had $1 million, it's not the money that they want, it's what they can do with the money. And it boils down a lot of times to their loved ones. Maybe they want to buy a house, or they want to provide for their family. And the kicker on this thing was, the second piece of that is, but what are you willing to give up in order to have that? Because you can't just put that in. So like you were talking about, like me, I'll talk to people, hey, you're watching Monday Night Football, or you're watching Sunday football, or, hey, instead of doing that, why don't we do a business presentation for somebody, or a business overview, or, if you come home and you're just hanging out on Friday nights or on Saturday and you're just having leisure time, why not go to a big event or a rally? So, because what I was teaching people, that for short-term sacrifice, they can have long-term gain, and then down the road, they can have everything they want. I tell them, hey, if they had a job, or, they owned a business, hey, during your breaks at work, can you talk to some people? Can you make a few prospecting phone calls? How about if you're just relaxing on Sunday night at your house? Maybe you can get a guest on a conference call if your business has a conference call. Listening to the radio. Another thing I thought, let's maximize our time. Let's put the big nuggets in there first, and then maximize it. So if you're listening to the radio, driving down the road, let's turn the radio off. Let's listen to some motivational CDs. If instead of going to the movies, watch a training video. For me, another one for me was, I like to hunt and fish. Instead of going hunting and fishing, I was going to work on my business. Short term, because then down the road I could continue, then I could do all the hunting and stuff I wanted if I built this business correctly. Short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. And then one of the big things I did, Mike, when I decided I was going to go with this business, and I figured it out, that I was really going to have to sharpen my skills up with my time, because that's all it is using our time a little bit differently and appropriating it differently, is I had a meeting with my family. I had all three of my sons and my wife. We sat down as a family meeting. First time we really kind of had one of those. And so they all kind of looked at me kind of funny. And I said, you guys, I'm about to get very busy. I see something, I feel something about our business and what we're doing right now that I can change our lives and our families' lives and maybe future generations if I go to work right now and really sharpen up on some skills. And I'm going to have to sacrifice. I'm going to maybe have to miss a ball game or two here, or a wrestling match, or maybe a dinner out with my wife, with you, honey, and all that. But if I'll do that, here's what we'll do is, as we're working this, I'm working this, and you guys are supporting me. I need support. I will reward. And so I actually, for my sons, I gave them a cash reward that when we hit a certain level, that they would each get X amount of cash. And it was a pretty decent number. And their eyeballs got wide open. And
got my attention, Dad.
Right. And then so what they became, Mike, is they became very supportive. They became encouraging. They wanted me to achieve the goals that we had set, and it got them excited. So what I did is, because a lot of people were very worried about their family and taking time away from their family, but if we'll include the family and our loved ones and let them be part of this and be part of their journey too, and rewards, that stuff will get them excited.
Yeah, I wrote down a couple words while you were saying that, because I think that what you just said right there could be a 3-hour masterclass, and here's why I say that. There's three things I want to touch on: your why, accountability, and reward. And those are just such golden nuggets that I know in your position of being a trainer and a coach and a network marketing professional, you know this, but sometimes I would say to people, you might not have even realized how powerful those words are. But I want to give you this example to preface my comment. Have you ever heard of the story, and I'm sure it's just a fable, but it might just be a really smart college professor that brought this, I don't know, like a glass container into the front of his classroom, and he goes, okay, class, we're going to, or maybe it was a plastic container, but you can see through it. And he says, here's this container here, and it's about a foot tall, and it's round, and I'm going to put these rocks in here. And he puts these rocks in there, and he fills it up to the top. And he goes, okay, how many people say this is full? And about 4 or 5 people say it's full. And he's like, nope. And he takes these little pebbles and he pours those in, and they start filling in. And he's like, okay, now how many will say now it's full? And I'm like, oh yeah, way more. And then he's like, nope. And then he puts sand all in there, and it fills it all the way up. And he's like, now who would say it's full? And more people raise it. And he's like, nope. And then he starts pouring water in. The point is, we might think we've got a full day, but we don't. And some of the things that we are filling our day with might not be productive activities. So here comes, like the big rocks, the pebbles, the sand and the water. So when you were saying to me just now, knowing your why, that is the thing that will make us willing to give up or add in things into our day. And then you cannot leave it right there, because any little seed that you throw out on really hard ground could get burned up with the sun, right? So how can you make sure it sticks and takes root? accountability. And then how do you make sure accountability takes root? Wow, the golden nugget of a reward. Like, wow, you can really get grueling and really tired if you're like, man, I'm putting in the hours here. And yeah, people hold me accountable. But if you and the people holding you accountable are rewarded every so often, now it kind of gets that breath of fresh air. So I just think that was such an amazing point. I wanted to pause and just reiterate that because it really is just a spectacular representation of how you can maximize your time.
Right. And Mike, one thing that I see that happens a lot of time in life is people will put the sand in first instead of the big rock.
Because it's easy.
Most important things in our life, the income producing activities and things like that, or whatever those rocks are, they do the easy stuff and they don't pay attention to and focus on the big stuff and then work their way down into where then you can fit the water in and you can fit it all in.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more because your human tendency is, I'm just going to get this thing done, check off the boxes, check. Well, maybe if it's worth something to you, it's going to be worth spending some time and effort on. So, maybe that sand, that's the easiest way it is to start doing some things, but maybe that's not the right order. Like kind of like making a recipe, a cake, the best cake maker in the world can make it and I could follow the same recipe and it's not going to come out the same because they knew right when to put this in and right when to do all the different steps. So yeah, you're exactly right. Is taking the most important steps and prioritize them. So here's a question for you. What do you find is helpful to kind of keep people on track, to stay on track using their time the best way?
Yeah, that's a major one, and this was very important for me because back when I owned my businesses, I never really did work like a day calendar or anything, because it was mainly the same routine in those businesses. But in this, I was going to fit things in and my family and things like that. So for what I did is I still today use a paper calendar, okay, a day timer. Now, there's a lot of people nowadays with technology that, I get people looking at me nowadays like, well, you don't use Google Calendar or all that or your phone. No, I don't. This is just me. I like it written down. So I use a day timer. And here's the deal. When I really started running this business, after I had the meeting with my family, if it wasn't on in my day timer and on that schedule, it didn't get done. In fact, what I learned as we were going, there was a point where I forgot to put a few things in the schedule. And I'm going to go over a couple things here that I think a person needs to put in that schedule. But one of the things I forgot was family time, mainly the family time of like a date night with my wife. My wife finally one day said, because she really didn't want, let me just say this, she didn't really want me to do this business because I was so busy in my other companies that I had to say, I said, I see something, be patient. I think we can flip this for us now, and which we did. But she was like, as we were building the network marketing business, she was like, well, when are we ever going to do anything? So I said, well, when we get the date night put into my calendar and we write it in there, that's when we'll do it. It's got to be in the schedule.
Yeah.
So here's a few things, Mike, that I've learned that I write down or somebody needs to have in their cell phone and their Google, calendar or whatever, however somebody does it. I do it, and I call it a daily method of operation, also known as a DMO. Okay. Now, one of the things is, of course, we're always going to want to do the important things first. I'm not going to tell anybody what the most important things are. I'm going to help coach them and stuff, but some of them are family time, or a date night, with your spouse, or spiritual, prayer, meditation, church, depending on what their belief is there. Exercise time, and being healthy. That's one thing is we can make all the money in the world, but if we're not taking care of that temple that we live in, we're going to run out of time. It's all the money we were making doesn't do us any good because we don't get to spend it. Personal development, read 10 pages in a leadership or a motivational book a day. Listen to a motivational CD or an educational CD. Prospecting time. We've got to talk to people to bring them into our businesses. That's what we do. We sell them a product. I talk to people about when are you going to do that, in the nooks and the crannies. Maybe do a power hour. I like sitting down and doing a power hour, putting one or two of those in my schedule a day. So then that's the time where I do nothing else, but I'm booking out and I'm prospecting. Maybe doing presentations, maybe helping teammates do presentations. I'm going to basically be working in my business. I've got to put and allocate time in that, from the time I get up. I got to put all this stuff in there till the time I'm going to call it quits for the day. And I can make that day as long or as short as I want. I'm going to have to make adjustments sometimes, but, those are some of the basics. I tell people that here's what happens is, people have family, they've got businesses and jobs, they've got coaching. Maybe people, some people might have, they might raise cows or things like that. People like to hunt. They've got kids, sports, hobbies, TV, household, social media, technology, spiritual health. All that can be overwhelming. And then what they do is then they go and in their spare time, when it's convenient, is they start working their network marketing business. And I say that's incorrect. I say what you do is you narrow it down. You go and you do family, you do the business or your job, coaching, say if you coach sports, if you're going to fit that in there. If you got cows, you're going to have to fit that in your business. You do all that stuff, but you put your network marketing business in there and you make it a must. You make it a must that you've got to do every day because consistency is everything. If it's an hour a day or if it's 4 hours a day or if it's 8 hours a day, be consistent what you do because once again, the doctor might tell somebody eat an apple a day, to stay healthy, but he didn't say if you don't get to eat all your apples every day on Saturday, catch up and eat 7, because if you eat 7 apples on Saturday, you might end up having to go to the doctor.
That's a good point.
Right?
The word that jumps in my mind there is balance.
Absolutely. Now, balance is a hard thing to find, but, sometimes because you got to kind of tilt it a little bit, but if you're trying for balance in life, sometimes you have to work harder and put a little other things on, on the back burner a little bit for a while, but that'll shift around. But I think you would agree because you're a professional. It's your calendar, your daytime, or it's your planning. Work a plan, set a plan, and work it because people just simply plan. They fail to plan and they fail to track what they're doing, and they start doing the unnecessary things first. When you should be doing the things that are most important first, and then when you have free time, start doing those other things.
Well, you know what they say about failing to plan?
What do they say?
Have you heard that before? When you fail to plan, you are actually planning to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it all the time. Yeah. I get to see it all the time. I think we see that out in the society all the time. Would you not agree?
I would, and I think that I want to wrap up with how people can reach out and connect with you, but I want to tie it back into just one final piece that we already touched on is when you know what's important to you and your why, that will pull you toward your goals, not push you. Because when people feel pushed, they resist, and when they feel pushed, they get exhausted. But when they're pulled towards something, you've got like the wind at your back, and you're excited. And then when you can layer in some accountability with rewards, like we talked about, then you can sit there and go, well, I don't have to watch SportsCenter for an hour and a half a night. I can watch it for 20 minutes to catch up, and then I can take that hour and pour it into building my business because my coach, my team leader has given me some really specific things that I can do at any point. I don't have to call people 11 p.m., but I can do this and this and this, and then on my lunch break, I can make 2-3 calls. Well, you might not think that 2 or 3 calls is a lot, but if you did it every single day, wow, that adds up over the month. So with respect to time, I just think we've had some really golden nuggets. What's the best way that anyone listening to this might kind of get a little bit of a spark and some curiosity and want to reach out and maybe connect with you to see if potentially you could help them create some of that margin and time and create some extra income in their life? You
bet. And Mike, one last thing, and then I'll give out my info here. But I've learned to run my business like a business and treat it like a multi-million-dollar business that it can provide. And I simply, people that are willing to put in their time, I'll put my time in. If they'll take one step forward, I'll take one step forward. I always teach people and tell people, I'll walk with the walkers, I'll run with the runners, and I'll quit on the quitters. Because my time is valuable, their time is valuable, but my time is valuable too for me and the rest of the people that are willing to put their time and efforts in. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
But people can get a hold of me. My Bob Dubois. Once again, they can reach me. Best way is to get me right on my direct line at 720-435-5076.
Well, Bob, it's been really great to talk with you today. We brought up some things that I hadn't thought of in a while, and I'm just really glad we did because it's really been a motivation for me as well.
Mike, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on today.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.